Welcome to the WoW podcast, where we bring you inspiring stories and insights from our university community. Tune in for conversations about growth, success, and the power of communication in the academic world. So get ready to soar with us on the wings of wisdom.
What does a provost do?
Very good question.
Like
Talking to a professional chef here.
All of us Lion King fans.
Yep.
No. I love to talk about gardening. If you ask me to show you pictures on my phone, yes, there's some pictures of grandchild on there. A few of those. Yeah, I did raise rabbits, and they were sweet.
Hello and welcome to a very, very special episode of the WoW podcast, Wings of Wisdom, brought to you by the Writing Communication Center, the WCC at Ashland University. And I'm your host, Mohsin Bansad. And today I'm joined by our wonderful Associate Director, Andrew Roble. Welcome.
Wonderful to be here.
And also we have a co-host, special co-host today, our marketing and social media coordinator, Megan Miller. Good to see you here today.
Thank you. On today's episode of WoW Podcast, we're honored to welcome our esteemed Provost. With rich and diverse background in academic leadership, Dr. J joined Ashland University in 2019, bringing a wealth of experience from his previous role as Vice President for the Academic Affairs at Lincoln Memorial University. His journey in academia is marked by his dedication to student success, starting from his days as a faculty member at LeTourneau University to his various leadership roles, including serving as a Dean of Arts and Sciences. Also known for his innovative mind as an inventor with several patents, Dr. J has consistently focused on enhancing students' advising and success. With a Doctor of Philosophy from the University of Florida and a certificate in Management and Leadership in Education from Harvard University, he is a visionary in the world of academic administration. Join us as we delve into the insight on fostering student success and his journey in shaping the academic landscape at Ashland University.
Thank you. Thank you for that very gracious introduction.
Well, thank you for your generosity and for your time and accepting the invitation. I know you must be so busy at the beginning of the semester, and we are, right?
We're so happy to have you here.
The start of the semester is usually a busy time for almost all administrators. So before the episode, and we're chatting for a little bit here, and you shared with us some family history. Can we back up a little bit and talk about young Amiel? And if you could tell us a little bit about your journey as an undergraduate student.
As an undergraduate student, yes, absolutely. So I would say, like many undergraduate students, I came to college, and I didn't really have a clear understanding of a educational pathway to a vocation or a career. So I knew things I liked, what I was interested in. In fact, prior to going to college, I had toyed with the idea of getting an appointment to the Coast Guard. I love sailing ships and all this kind of stuff, and I toyed with that idea, but I did not go on through with that. So that would have been fascinating, and it would have been life-changing to do it, but I didn't have a clear pathway. And so a lot of things in my career have unfolded because of opportunities that I've had. I would say key to that, I had a mentor who was a faculty member when I was at Friends University. Her name was Dr. Boyle. She also was one of those who was perceptive and recognized strengths in her students and would make recommendations that could definitely enhance their journey. And she wanted me to do a research project with her, which I did. I don't know if she saw my initiative, whatever. And so she had me doing that. And then she also saw that she had additional need for people to tutor general chemistry students. She asked me to tutor a couple of those, which I did as well. So that was a great blessing with her. And then she recommended that I do a research internship, that I apply for a research internship. And it was a pretty big deal. It was at a national lab, Argonne National Lab in Chicago. She supported me in that, recommended me for it, and I was selected to do that. So after I graduated from college, I went to Chicago for a summer.
Interesting.
And that led to a fall, that led to a spring, that led to a summer, which then led me to go to graduate school because I had another mentor who said, hey, you really should go to grad school. Mm-hmm. And that was certainly part of my journey as an undergrad and going into a career of research and then teaching and becoming a faculty member. So pretty key to have people like that, and for faculty to be perceiving and saying those things to students and helping students with that. And I know here at Ashland, we do have faculty that do that.
Biology from Friends University in Kansas, right? And then you had the experience in Chicago, conducting research, and which led you to your graduate, right? Studies at University of Miami in Florida. I'm sorry, Florida. Florida.
In Gainesville.
Gainesville. All right. And after finishing your PhD, could you walk us through your journey from that time to your first appointment as an assistant professor in biology?
Sure. So while I was at the University of Florida earning my doctorate, on the tail end of that, I had the opportunity to have a senior scientist position. So in the system there, you had faculty members, but typically a research faculty member would have a scientist staff member who would do the day-to-day operations, which could have included, which it did for me, conducting research, supervising student assistants in the lab, training and support for graduate students in the lab, doing statistical analysis. I basically was the financial person that kept track of the finances. I had facilities I was responsible for. I had, hazardous materials disposal responsibilities. All the things about running an honest-to-goodness R1 research lab fell to me operationally.
Oh, wow.
Yes, my boss, the professor, his office was down the hall. He would visit the lab, once a day or so, and sometimes he would sit down at a microscope, but generally it was the grad students, myself, and student assistants, and even some postdocs. We were all in the lab, and we were doing things, or in the greenhouse, or in the field, or whatever, but I was involved in making sure all those things happened. So that was an experience that I then brought with me as I became a faculty member, which most faculty members do not start with. And I did that job for a couple of years after getting my doctorate as well, until getting a faculty position. Most faculty do not start with 7 years of management experience.
Wow.
Unless you're in business.
Right.
And there it's almost the norm that you would have that. But I did. That was part of my knowledge and experience base that allowed me as a faculty member to then be efficient enough that I could get involved in student success activities and support advising and freshman or first year experience type of activities with students, which I did as I became a faculty member. But the interesting thing is that I felt after I became a faculty member, full-time faculty member, and all of the things I was doing and all the rewards of working with students as an instructor and as an advisor, it was like all my experiences I've had so far have converged on preparing me to be this individual, to do this job, to do this very worthy work. You just felt just so blessed and it all converged. So that was I think the good thing now. You also get into having who you are as a person, what are your values playing into how you do that work.
Right.
Do you care about students? Do you pay attention and stay alert in working with students? Which my boss would always say, he was the vice president for academic affairs. He's like, the key to good advising is staying awake. And what he meant by that was, you got to keep paying attention. Don't let things fall through cracks in the floor or something like that. Don't forget to do this. So you got to keep paying attention because you're serving the student.
Right.
And that was something that he instilled in all of us.
Amazing.
Positive.
Yeah. those influences you mentioned, your professor mentor at Friends University, and then the people you worked with in Chicago and University of Florida.
Guess?
Yeah, amazing.
So what do you enjoy most about being provost, and like what do you find most challenging? But first of all, what does a provost do?
So,
Very good question.
Yeah.
Well, I will say this. We don't do everything, but in the academic realm, through the work of the deans and their interactions, which they are interacting with faculty members, department chairs, we know a lot of things because we're talking about and they're reporting, and they bring to me the challenges, and we talk through the challenges. We talk through the projects. That's really a lot of what a provost does, is help to walk through strategic things. There are operational things. I always like to joke with people. So I'm a blue pen. I don't know how long I've been using a blue Pilot click pen, but about every 10 days I use one of these up from signing my name.
Oh.
So one of the things I do is sign my name a lot.
Okay.
I have a lot of meetings. I go to a lot of meetings. I host a lot of meetings. I try through several avenues to communicate things that are going on. So today is a Friday. We typically do a provost message on Friday.
Right.
So I need to write the introduction to the provost message this week. I do that. I see a lot of email. I have to weed through a lot of email. So that. Committees, board interactions, faculty senate interactions, hiring processes for faculty and other staff in academics. It's interacting with my leaders, my assistant provost for student success, library director, study abroad director, registrar. So it's working with people. That's pretty much what the provost does. I think it's interesting to ask, what do I like about this? Well, what's my favorite part, the thing I really like, is seeing new programs actually implemented and successful. That's a pretty rewarding thing to have happen. And the small part that you play in that, listening to things, asking questions, guiding, certainly there's a lot more work done by other people than me doing it all. It's a lot of listening, it's a lot of meetings, and some words here and there that help to direct things. So that would be it. What is the greatest challenge, or
What do you find most challenging?
what is most challenging? I would say budgets and resources.
Yeah.
There are good things that we think up and propose, and we're just, how do we get the resources to make this happen? And it's a very joyful thing when you can figure out the resources to do something very worthwhile. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Very good.
So it seems like communication is so important with your job. And I think you would agree with me when I say that for our students, communicating is not only necessary, but beneficial to them. And when you cultivate those relationships, you could grow. And in my bad segue, I'll move on to your hobby, which is gardening, which I share with you. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I love to talk about gardening. You're correct about the communication skills. I think it's important for all of us to reinforce with students the development of communication skills. Whether it's writing a good, informative, focused email, whether it's making sure you go back and read your text message before you hit send.
Right.
Whether you craft a voicemail message for someone that has all the information in it. I was calling students to help with those that have been accepted but are undecided, and Dean Brown has a stack that admissions has given her, and we kind of spread them around academic council, and I took some of those and I made some calls, and I left a lot of message. So I made sure I had my message down before I actually started calling people. But some of that stuff, with all we do with people, we're in the people business.
Yes.
Communication with the people business. So my outlet, if you will, my hobby, or where do I get, kind of a break or a change of pace, change of focus, is in working with my hands. Growing up in a family that did garden, growing up with a father who, he was really good with things that were made out of metal. So whether it was an engine or an injector for a diesel engine or hydraulics or something like that, just did jeweler's work on that. Everything was so clean and precise, and don't give him wood to work with. Your wife could make the transition to wood, but my brother and I love to work with wood and do that. So that's something I do. But in the gardening realm, I have done that a long time, and I find little things that I try. But my one thing I've been doing here recently, the last 3 years, is actually having what I call a micro vineyard. So I have about 20 grapevines. Some of them are in their third year now, and they yielded a pretty good product. This last September I harvested, and that's been fun. And I love it because you get really in tune with what I'll call the circle of life, if you will.
Right.
I think all of us Lion King fans have to know what the circle of life is, but I'm thinking more of the seasons of the year and the seasons of growth and productivity and then dormancy and coming back around and watching as those emerge. So if you ask me to show you pictures on my phone, yes, there's some pictures of grandchild on there. Few of those. But there's also photos of my grapevines developing throughout the year, going from bud break to flowering and full leaf and fruit set and stages of the fruit maturing and then getting to harvest and that type of thing. It's very rewarding for me to watch that.
Right.
And it's happening, and I don't have to push it. A lot of things we do when we work with people,
Amazing.
we have to be this prod, if you will, pulling things along, pushing things along to get things to happen.
Yeah.
And when you get to gardening or working with
Similar.
trees or vines or things like that, they do it.
Yeah.
You're a caretaker, you shape, but you're not actually having to be in there,
Right.
forcing things to happen. So it's much more rewarding, something to do with your hands and your time at the end of the day. So that's one of those things.
Creating the right environment for
Yeah.
And that's a good lesson for our students too, the preparation. You need to be prepared. You need to do the work beforehand if you want to be successful.
to grow. And you're a big gardener as well.
Yeah, I like the garden.
Yeah.
So I'll show you my picture set.
Yeah, exactly. But it's as a plant pathologist, that was my training at the doctoral level. It is knowing all these things that can go wrong. But with my grapevines, I'm practicing some of the things that I know there. So you have diseases, and you have to manage the diseases. You have insects, you have to manage the insects. Otherwise, you will not have a harvest. And
Amazing.
so you're putting into practice those things, but you're also preparing along the way and being very proactive. I have to do this. This is a responsibility. I have to spray today. I can't put it off till tomorrow. The number of Japanese beetles is up to this. They have to be sprayed now. And then you just keep on that kind of discipline, which applies, of course, to many other areas of life.
And the other great part of that for our students is the importance of you are very practiced and have a lot of experience, but you're still in the learning process. You're still adapting. And that's a really good lesson for our students to keep adapting, keep growing.
Absolutely. I didn't arrive on this earth with all of these things formed in me. I had to practice. I had to learn. I had to do. And literally, it's a lot of work.
Is that something that you do by yourself, or do you maybe invite your grandchildren to help out?
I typically do it by myself.
Good call.
Get home, change my clothes, or sometimes not. We'll put on a sun hat and walk out to the vineyard and walk up and down the vines and check on things. and then decide, do I have something I need to do today, or can I go in and, this is the end of the day. So but I will gladly show anybody if they want to come experience it firsthand. And gardening has been that way, I used to have a tangerine tree and a lemon tree when I lived in Florida, and raised those. And
Regular lemon or Meyer?
Meyer lemon. Yep.
Yeah, you would know. Yeah.
They are. They have enough orange genetics in them that they taste better. So,
yeah. Do you like gardening, Megan?
Yes, I grew up gardening because my parents both came from an agriculture background. So the one thing they took with them was to continue to garden. So we grew up on like 3 acres of land, and we had this massive garden in the back, and we would grow literally everything. Like, if you want pumpkins, watermelon, cantaloupe, to just like beans, potatoes, tomatoes, anything.
I had no idea.
Yeah. So it was a lot of fun. As a kid, I would just help my dad plant the green beans. That was my favorite part. And then after I was done with that, before we moved on to corn, I would always wear a pair of sunglasses and try to find them the next year. I may have lost that pair and ran a couple times. But it was always very fun for me.
Very good.
Yeah.
And speaking of promoting growth, are there any initiatives or programs that your office has introduced or approved that you'd like to tell us about and maybe brag about?
I will, absolutely, especially in how we're enhancing the student academic experience.
Wonderful.
There are things, these are mainly through our student success group. So coming up here in March and April, they will be supporting and promoting interactions of faculty and students as they do the handoff from professional advisors to faculty advisors. So having activities for that handoff and to help people get to know each other, be introduced, that's going on. The halfway to graduation celebration, I think, is so cool.
Oh, it is, yeah.
And we'll be doing that. I've been at a couple of those so far. There's prizes, there's a scholarship given, etc. So that one's good. We've started, I would have to say, maybe a cycle ago, maybe 2, this whole business of requiring degree planning. So the advisor is working with the student to lay out what is your plan. So it's not, semester to semester, you're trying to figure this out, but you're laying it out a little bit better on basically an on-ramp. So that's a good thing. And then they love doing this. I know the advisors do because I see them. They talk about it all the time, what they call field advising. And they end up in the convocation dining, being available for students just to drop in, do advising, help them. And sometimes that's the only way you can catch busy students.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
So those are some of the things that I think they really help.
Yeah.
And we've been graciously supported in that with a gift from a donor. So those are some things that are going on.
Yeah.
The next question, so we did talk a little bit about your hobbies and stuff. Is there something that the Ashland community doesn't know about you? Like a fun fact, kind of like it's an icebreaker with our students. We say like, tell us something interesting about you. Like,
Sure.
Can you share something like that?
Sure. I could probably tell you several things, but probably I've already talked about them. But this one I haven't. So 3 times during my life, I raised rabbits.
Oh, really?
And a similar thing to all the gardening or growing grapes or whatever is this circle of life of going through all the processes of having rabbits and having lots of rabbits. But I did them when I was in Florida as a preteen. And then when I was a college student in Kansas, I had some there. And then when I went to grad school, I had rabbits because I had the cages, It's like, took my cages with me and to grad school, and I had rabbits in Florida when I went to grad school. So it was part of my, you're raising them and
where did they keep
them. I had kind of a covered area in each place, so they had shelter from rain and stuff like that. But we're outside.
But it was not in the dorm, right? It was.
Oh, no. No, I had a rental house.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
And I had a little shed out back and
Nice. So you got this
kept
space.
the rabbits there. Yeah. Yeah, I did raise rabbits and they were sweet. My wife had one she adopted. She put a little Sharpie mark in its ear. So she knew that was, I think she called that one Ashley or something like that. It was very, domesticated. Pretty nice. She'd bring it in the house and let it kind of be with her in the house from time to time.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Yeah, and we did that. I mean, the first time I raised them, we had a whole variety of rabbits. I think my brother had some too. So
Did you use them in research at all?
No, I've never used them in research. Okay. When I studied virology, rabbits were one of the animals they used to raise up antigens for detection.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But
Yeah.
I didn't personally do that.
And Megan, in the introduction, mentioned that you have several patents to your name.
Yeah.
I do.
If you'd like to share with us, one cool invention you're proud of.
Yeah, it's interesting that I've had the experience of doing that, and then I helped one of my students walk through applying for a patent when they brought an idea to me and said, what do I do with this? How do I do this? And I was like, well, here's what I know. And we kind of walked through that. But in the work that I did related to beach remediation, it was really the focus. There are organisms, which I studied, it's what I did my doctoral dissertation on, that you have to grow with a plant. I mean, they're obligate symbionts. You have to grow them on the roots of plants. And so we would do that. But then you have, how do I then, if you want to use them to inoculate, to disperse them and get them on thousands or millions of plants, how do you do that?
Right.
Because roots are fairly big and you needed to have them in a living root to do that. So being the cook that I have been and being familiar with technology in the kitchen, I was like, I wonder if we could use a food processor to cut up these into really small bits, because you can puree
Right.
in a food processor, or you can do it in a blender. And other people had tried blending. Some people had dried the roots and then ground them like in a hammer mill or something like that, which basically killed them.
Yeah.
And even using a blender, because a blender has a fairly blunt blade that's designed to break ice and other things. A food processor has an extremely sharp blade that's designed to cut and make little bits out of a sharp blade. And so we invented what was called a sheared root process for making inoculum. So we would take fresh roots that were colonized and stick them in the food processor in some water and make an inoculum that way. And that's what one of my patents is for. Yeah.
Did you experiment with the different food processors? Because they're not all created equal.
Oh, no. I won't promote a particular brand, but I use the best brand with the sharpest blade.
At the high end. Nice.
And I've had to replace my home one because I used it in the lab. I'll never live that down to my wife. She's like, you took it to the lab. She gave it permission, but it was like, you need to buy me a new blade and a new bowl. And
Well, she knew it was.
I was like, she is to blame.
Maybe.
So that was one patent that actually today you can go out and buy commercial products that have the mycorrhizal fungi in them. And what processes they use, I've been away from it enough that I don't know exactly what they're doing commercially. But we did a fair amount of work on commercialization of inoculum production.
Amazing.
So it's kind of cool to see that in the marketplace. The other one is really funny. With the student, he came to me and said, I observed this. He says, I think there's something here. Can we try and figure it out? Can we do the experimentation to prove there's some relationship and some active agent, and then try and patent this? So it'll be a molecule use patent is what it is. But so he had observed, he was from Canada. Canada has just awesome mosquitoes. And I guess he was somebody who was susceptible and had warts.
Oh, really?
And he said, it's happened, I guess, at least once, if not more times. He would get bitten by mosquitoes on some of those warts. This was his claim. I did not observe this. From the data that we collected, I tend to believe that, there's something there. But he said, and then the wart would eventually just shrink up and go away.
Oh.
It's like, this has got to have an application to something from the mosquito saliva being an anti-cell proliferation agent, like a chemotherapy agent, that was at work here. So he had done some research on what's in mosquito saliva, particular types of mosquitoes and so on. He said, I think it's this class of peptides. And so we had a particular peptide synthesized by a company, and then we contracted to have that tested on tumors in mice.
Right.
And lo and behold, injecting the stuff into a tumor in mice actually caused them to shrink or to go down in their size. As effective as the best chemotherapy agent, cisplatin. So from that work, in addition to doing some work on stents for blood vessels, where they coat them with chemotherapeutic agents, put together a patent application on that, and then I think there's a couple of international patents based on it as well.
Amazing.
So that was kind of cool of, helping a student say, okay, you've observed something, you have an idea, and you think that it's novel, not obvious to those that are skilled in the art, which is a test of the patent office. We walk through that, and so have some patents related to that too.
Wonderful.
So, I've always been a problem solver, and one of my gifts or strengths, if you will, the strengths finder is analytical.
Right.
Which is analytical is can be a good thing, it can be a bad thing. Analyticals can be a little bit overly critical.
Yeah.
So you have to control that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so you have like decades of experiencing relationship with students, mentoring them. In today's day and age, with everything that's going on that we know that we're facing, what advice would you give to our Ashland students and then the just university community abroad?
Question. Thank you. One that I have given to students for years and would continue to give is pick one thing outside of the classroom and commit to it. Do it. Do it consistently. Keep contributing to that so that you can become a leader in that. Don't try and do 5 things, 10 things, and be involved in everything. Pick out one and be committed and serious about it, and really become the recognized leader for that while you're a college student. Because obviously I've seen the business freshman comes in, wants to do everything. And they do that, and their coursework falls off, and they get burned out, and which was not the intention of having activities available to students. It's like, do one thing, do it well. Keep doing it the next year and the next year. Become a leader with whatever that activity or group or organization is. And that will be more beneficial to you than if you try and do a whole bunch of things and only do them for a little time.
Right.
So that would be my advice. I think that is still great advice.
So, yeah, maybe as a final question, Dr. J, what's your long-term vision for academic success at Ashland University?
My long-term vision, I really think that all of us need to encourage learning, and an understanding of learning is self-learning. Nobody can force learning on you as an adult or as a college student learner or anywhere else. That learning is self-learning. Everything you actually really get is self-learning, and anything you can do to encourage others to engage and do to learn is really the best thing. And to put the practice into it, put the time into it. I think I've observed in my 30 plus years now, I guess it is, the vocabulary is one of those things that we can always be improving, and it is truly a key to success. As a scientist, I had to learn a very specific vocabulary to communicate, because you really are talking about things that have very special features or nuances to them, and we have used words to describe what those are.
Right.
And so as you learn about them, or you're trying to communicate with other people about them, the specificity of the words you use is so critical to that communication. And I have seen a decrease in my professional lifetime of the vocabulary of the students that would come into my freshman course, or even into, say, my upper level courses, but especially saw it at the introductory level in general biology. Yeah. When I had a student raise a hand during an exam and say, "Can you tell me what this word means?" It wasn't a choice on a multiple choice question. It was a word that was the preamble to the choices
And the question. Yes.
and it was a key word, but it was not a difficult word. It was something that probably from 4th or 5th grade vocabulary level you would have known.
Right.
And that was kind of a flag to me of, you know what? I think I have a vocabulary problem with my incoming students. Obviously, it wasn't everybody, but it was a lot of them.
Right.
And so I started putting a focus on at that time of, let's diagnose where you're at in your vocabulary and give you tools to develop your vocabulary, and encourage you when you're reading, if you don't know a word, write it down. Then go find the meaning and come back to it and keep practicing in your mind what is the meaning of this word, so that you will be building your vocabulary over time.
Right.
Do you have a specific recommendation how to augment your vocabulary? Like, I think reading as much as you can. You see so many variety of terms in different text. Mine would be reading. What would yours be?
I would say it's reading, and it's reading classics.
Yes.
Okay. Read the classics. I would give this advice to incoming students, freshmen. I'd say read the classics. There are plenty of them out there. Read them. Some of them are fun to read because of the storyline, the plot.
Right.
But yet they also use a vocabulary that is higher level than what popular media or newspaper, news reports, etc. use today. I've just embarked on a reading project. It'll probably take me a year or more. But to read a translation of John Calvin's The Institutes of Christian Religion. There's a high-level vocabulary in this book. And, new words, they come up. Probably every 5 pages I come across a word. And I'm like, you know what? I think I know how that word's being used and what it means. But it's not a word that I commonly use, and I may not have seen that word very much in my life. So it's reading, it's keeping track of what those words are, and then quizzing yourself. Mm-hmm. I even have some note cards in my office of words that I've been working on for a couple of years.
Yeah.
So
I think that decline in use of advanced academic vocabulary has something to do with decline in free reading. Reading for pleasure. Now, I think most high schoolers would rather be watching a movie or a TV show instead of reading a book. And
it's true.
It is. But again, you mentioned something really deep to me, and you said learning is self-learning. So whatever that is, it might be, I don't know, the weakness that you identify in yourself could be, I don't know, could be a social aspect of your interaction with others. So identifying what that is and then working on that. Is that what you meant by learning is self-learning?
That is definitely part of it. But I would say just the responsibility, and that you have to internalize knowledge and skills.
Right.
I thank and bless my parents and others, but mainly my parents, for giving me what I would call the freedom to learn.
Very good.
So my father always would give us the example of, okay, we have something we need to do. We may never have done this before in our lives, but we would get the best information, we'd get the proper materials, and we would get the right tools to do the job.
Mm-hmm.
Don't try and do it with the wrong tools.
Right.
I mean, being a mechanic was like, if there's a specialized tool to get this done, don't try and do it with other tools. Get the specialized tool.
Right.
But it was that ethic of freedom to learn. It's like, pick up a wrench, pick up a hammer, whatever, and do something with it. Learn what it feels like yourself. Don't watch it, don't watch a YouTube on how to do that if you don't have the things in front of you to practice and get your hands on it. Or even mentally, if there's some kind of activity you're doing, solving a problem, doing a quiz, a crossword puzzle, something like that, do it, get serious about it and make sure that you're getting everything you can from it. But don't be afraid of doing something new. Again, get the right materials, the right information, and the right tools, and just get into it and do it. And don't be afraid of it. I have taught myself so many things that way. But it's because my mother let us get in the kitchen. I learned to bake bread myself.
Wonderful.
As long as I cleaned up after myself, I was good to go.
That's key, huh?
Yeah, but it was, that was kind of the only requirement is clean up and put the tools away.
Put them away. That's huge too.
Yeah, but other than that, go find stuff and do it.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and that way you internalize. What did you learn by doing that? Even if it was, a dismal failure, you learn from failures too. Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. Wonderful. And that's what we tell our students here too. The WCC lab is for everyone. It's open to the entire community, not just for coaches or employees. It's also for faculty members. If they want to have a small class here, they're more than welcome. If they want to have a workshop or use one of our huddle rooms to rehearse presentations and what have you, we would like for this space to be a communal space, a space for learning.
And we cultivated an environment of calmness. You can make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. That's how we learn. We're so happy to see the growth of the students that come in here.
Absolutely.
And happy to help them on their journey.
Yeah, reinforcing that idea that we learn by mistakes, and it's okay to make mistakes. I think we've had those who think if you have the talent, you just launch in and you're good at it. And the fact of the matter is, no, those that you see, they might suddenly pop on the horizon and you become aware of them that seem to just be amazing in their talent. They didn't just happen to be that way.
Yeah, no.
Yes, there might be some things they were born with.
Right.
But there's a lot of work that went into the successes they've had, and there were probably some failures, and there were some trials, and there were, to get to the point and making it okay, reinforcing it's okay. To go through those steps.
Don't give up.
Yeah, don't give up.
Yeah, keep going. Yeah. It's a wonderful piece of advice. Maybe we can stop the show here. Dr. J, thank you so much for your time.
Very welcome. Thanks for the invitation.
Wisdom.
Thank you for the invitation.
We appreciate you. We appreciate everything you do. Yeah.
Well, you're welcome.
Thanks for all your service to Ashland.
Well,
Absolutely. Yeah,
you're
thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you for teaching me what a provost is.
It's one of those things that I get asked over and over, what is a provost? And you'll say it and people are like, I know that's somehow supposed to be important, but
It is.
but I really don't know what a provost does. So, yeah, it is. It's fascinating.
Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, have a wonderful day.
Yeah.
All
You
right.
too.
Okay, bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the WoW podcast, where curiosity meets inspiration. Brought to you by the Writing and Communication Center at Ashland University.